Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of EDiscovery After Hours. My guest this week is Michael Lalande from FTI. Michael and I started off the conversation talking about his honeymoon in northern Italy, and we transitioned to his time as a first responder and his early career aspirations to go into law enforcement, and how that turned into him going to the UK for law school before returning to Canada and getting into this world that we know as eDiscovery. He has a really interesting early career story, so I know that you're going to get a kick out of it. It was a great conversation. So the sponsor this week is Discovery Master. Discovery Master is the only solution that federates access across relativity hosting locations and automates project metrics and QC stats. So you've got near real-time data into how much this thing has cost, when it's going to be done, what's been found, and who are the most effective reviewers. Check out www.discoverymaster.co. Thanks for tuning in.
Quick time!
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, eDiscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
All right, Michael, welcome to eDiscovery After Hours. Cheers, man.
Thanks, Ryan. Cheers.
Okay, what are we drinking?
I'm drinking a Valpolicella Ripasso. And why I'm so hooked on Valpolicella Ripasso is I am married, and my wife's father is from the Valpolicella region up in Verona, Italy. And so we went there on our honeymoon. It was kind of a different honeymoon because we first went to Greece, and then we met with her friends who are also vacationing in Greece at the same time as our honeymoon. And then when we went to Italy, it was meet the Italian families. And so every day we went to a different family's household and had meals with them and drinks with them. So not the typical honeymoon that you'd expect being away with your newly married bride, but it was a great opportunity to go and explore Italy. We went to Venice and all the northern regions. It was just absolutely beautiful. But the Ripasso means twice rinsed. So it gets rinsed twice through. And so that's why it's so fine, and it's not harsh at all. It's just such an easy drink. And so whenever anyone asks, like, me to recommend a wine at dinner, I'm always going to the Ripasso, and it's always a stellar hit. What do you think of it?
It's fantastic. I didn't know what it was. I had to, like, when we were trading notes before the show and I asked what you wanted to drink, I had to Google it. Like, I was like, what is this? I assumed it was a wine, but I didn't know anything about it. No, it's fantastic. I could be guilty of, maybe leaving the bottle here in the office. And, if I struggle in a conference call or two, it may get cracked open. Were you recently married, or has this been a while ago?
Right before COVID. So literally we got married in September before COVID, bought our house, and then went on our honeymoon, and then COVID hit. And so we were so thankful that we got to go to honeymoon and have our wedding and everything before COVID, because it was just like right after that, I think March hit, and everything was shut down. And even in Toronto right now, we just went back into another lockdown. All the restaurants are closed, bars are closed, offices are closed. And so that's why I'm at home right now, which I would love to be in our new offices. But yeah, unfortunately, everything's blocked.
Wow. So we're recording this on January 13th. I had no idea that Toronto was back in lockdown again. Man, that's brutal. And, Italy was like the second. I think it was like China and then Italy and then maybe the UK. But Italy was like the big European country where everybody in North America was like, oh, wait, I think we maybe get shut down too. Like, what is going on here? So yeah, it's fantastic. I've been to Italy once. I went to Rome and to Sicily, and I don't think I could live in Rome, but I loved to visit there. Assisi, that's like got to be one of my favorite places on earth. It's just, I don't know if you've been. It's this medieval. So this is a cool story. I think it's a cool story. If people don't, just skip ahead the little 30-second button on YouTube or whatever. But we were in Assisi. It was my now wife and a group of friends, and it's this medieval town with, these winding cobblestone streets and alleyways and what have you. And we are absolutely starved and we're kind of lost and we're in this like kind of off the beaten trail. And we round a corner and there's this like hunched over old man and he looks at us and just kind of waves us on. And we're like, I don't know what's happening right now, but okay, let's follow him. And he's going, jagging left and right and going through these things. And we're kind of hanging back a little bit. And he looks back to make sure we're still following. And then he rounds one more corner and he kind of goes like this. And there's this adorable little restaurant in the middle of nothing, like just this little residential area. And it was maybe the best meal of my life. It was pork loins with truffle oil. And we later learned that that's like a 4-star Michelin restaurant.
Just hit in there.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't, that's just a weird little thing, but yeah. So my memories of Italy's food and wine are also excellent. Also, I don't know if it's like sulfates or sulfites or something, but the wine there is just different. It's different than here. It's better.
Yeah. Because there's no preservatives. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So anyway, that's the extent of my lack of knowledge. And now people know why I drink bourbon because I know nothing about wine.
Well, no, Italy food is the best food I've ever had in my life. I think only second to Spain and Portugal. My wife and I, before we got married, we traveled a bunch to Spain, the north and then to the south, and same with Portugal. All so beautiful, and the food just spectacular, and the wine there too as well. It was just unbelievable.
Man, I pine for a day when you can do global travel again without worrying about random shutdowns and airline cancellations and all of this stuff. But well, regardless of all that, congrats on your relatively recent, I guess it's been it's been two and a half years. So you're just outside the newlywed phase. But no, it's good to be talking to you. And so a couple of things that I picked up on as I was doing my little pre-show preparation here is that EDiscovery might be the least exciting career you've had. You were actually a medical first responder for a period of time. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah. I was a volunteer with St. John's Ambulance as a medical first responder. I was also in the military for about 15 years. So started off as a soldier, infantry, digging trenches and doing all that fun stuff. And then realized that my back and my knees weren't going to handle it too much longer. So switched over to logistics and intelligence. And so did a lot of paperwork and all that fun stuff. I actually started off wanting to be a police officer, went to police college and Niagara College and went there and absolutely loved it. Started watching all those TV shows around the time, like Dexter and CSI, and thought, and I want to go and become a forensics guy, love technology. So went to school for criminology. And then when I was in criminology and I was with the Army Regiment where the school was, I met another individual who was in the same program. And he said, oh, in your final year, you have to do a volunteer spot with a local company that's related to law enforcement. So he's like, I'm doing one with a lawyer right now. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, you should totally hit this guy up. He's in our Army Regiment, go and work for him. And so I messaged the guy and he's just like, hey, yeah, you want to come do your placement? He's like, sure, come on, you can start next week. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that like I had to still wait another year or so before I could do my placement. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come and do this placement with you. So I ended up working for him for about 6 months, like odds and ends here and there, going to court, doing adjournments and like reading through briefs with him, meeting with clients. And then he came up to me 6 months later and said, hey, do you want me to sign your form to say that you're done all this volunteer hours for your program? And I said, well, actually, like it's supposed to be in a year from now. And he's like, so you've been working for free for the past 6 months? I'm like, yeah. And he's just like, I couldn't believe that. He's like, he ended up paying me for all the time that I worked, but he's like, you got this experience and now you got this like law in your blood. And he's like, well, now you can't become a cop. Now you have to be a lawyer. Like, why would you want to deal with criminals all day when you're wearing a uniform and getting spit on, when you can come and wear a suit all day and be all prestigious? So I ended up talking with him and he said his brother-in-law went to school in the UK and you can do it in 2 years. So I ended up applying for law school and within a week I got accepted. And they said, hey, I think I applied in December, like mid-December when I was about to finish my program. And they said, hey, you want to start in January? And it was literally like 4 weeks later, I was off to the UK, started my law degree, finished in 2 years, came back to Canada and when I came back, I found out that was probably a big mistake because there is a huge stigma, and I'm not sure if it's the same in the US, but there's a huge stigma behind internationally trained law students. And so it's always, I'm sure it's the same in the States. They always look to see, are you a Harvard grad? Are you a Yale grad? What law school did you go to really matters? And also it's huge for building your network too, right? And so it was really an uphill battle for me once I came back from law school to try and develop my practice and even get an articling position. In Canada, we have to do a 10-month articles where you are under the tutelage of a lawyer, and they sign off on your certificate, and then before you write the bar exam. And so for me, even to just get an articling position, I literally went door to door knocking on people's door asking if they had a spot open. And finally, this lady opened up her door and she said, "Oh, I'm not hiring." And I said, "Oh, I wasn't asking. I was telling you I want a job with you." And this lady was just like, "Come and sit down. I'm going to read you out." She started reading me out, saying like, "How dare you come into my practice," and demanding a job. And then she started having problems with her computer. She's like, "My emails won't update." And so I went in and changed SMTP to POP. And all of her emails started loading. She's like, "How did you know this?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm good with computers." And she's like, "Well, could you manage my IT as well?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds like a great opportunity." And she's like, "Do you also need a place to live? Because the law firm actually has an apartment in the basement." And I'm like, "Oh, this sounds like a great opportunity. It's in a downtown area and a free place to live." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I also live on the top floor, so you'll be living with me at the same time." So it was quite the experience in criminal law when you live with your articling principal, because often she would call down at 3 a.m. and say, "Hey, we just got a client," because criminals call all times of the night. "We just got a client. You need to go meet him in court at 8 a.m. or you need to go meet this person in jail right now." So it was always like a continual thing going on. But it was a fantastic experience. Really felt like I was living in the moment. The only time I was late for work was because I had to drive out to go buy a shovel to shovel the driveway and end up getting stuck in the snow. End up having to call into my boss saying, "I can't make it to work today." And she's like, "What do you mean? You're in the basement." "No, I had to go buy a shovel." But then, yeah, after that, worked on a lot of coroner's inquests, which necessitated a lot of documents, lots of briefs. And so once I started working with that, I thought, there must be an easier way to deal with all these files. Like there's just too many papers. And a lot of the time I feel like junior lawyers spend is just binding materials, printing things off, tabbing things. Mm-hmm. It's just an insurmountable waste of time. And so started looking into different methodologies and different platforms, came across Relativity, and then came across a firm that actually did document review. And so reached out to them to see if they would do that type of stuff. My principal wouldn't sign off on it, but then they sent me a message just saying like, "Hey, if you ever want to do document review, just shoot us a message." And so I ended up thinking, this seems like a really budding area of law, EDiscovery, and it's like really tech-based, and went to go see what they do. And everyone was on, there's a room of 100 people on laptops. They had a server there. It was just like beautiful. It looked like everyone was a computer programmer. And so came in and absolutely loved it. Started doing that, and then made my rounds working at different vendors, doing document review all across Toronto. And then ended up working for one of the top firms in Toronto as an EDiscovery associate. And so I worked there for about 4 or 5 years. And then now just recently joined FTI Consulting as the senior director in their managed review. I think I bring a unique perspective to EDiscovery and my practice as well. Is I think once you're in the front lines of people and you're sitting side to side with people who are doing document review day in and day out for several years, you start to realize that like even at the end of the day, that some things are more important than money, and people value and trust people who they've worked with and they know that's what they're doing, right? And so I've had that great opportunity to work with a lot of people in Toronto and work alongside them and know who are trustworthy and who are respectful and who really are passionate about EDiscovery. And just because they're not full-time employees or contractors doesn't mean that they can't be passionate about something like EDiscovery. And yeah, so that's where I ended up. Joined a bunch of groups like Sedona Canada, helped redrafting one of the principles for Sedona Canada, and working alongside an organization called DEED in Ontario, which is the Digital Evidence EDiscovery Working Group. And we do a lot of internal facing education and external facing. They run the EDiscovery conference that Ontario hosts every year, called the EDiscovery Symposium, where all the experts come together and present on EDiscovery. But it's a great opportunity. And like for anyone that's watching, that's just starting off in EDiscovery, I'd highly recommend joining a group like DEED, these local groups where you get to meet everybody, because no matter what happens, you aren't able to learn everything about EDiscovery by reading a book or even just working on a couple of cases. Even after working on cases for 2 or 3 years, your knowledge is so limited just to those cases. But having colleagues like Ryan, who are experienced in EDiscovery and have worked on different types of cases, you always have to bounce ideas off of people, because chances are the cases that he's worked on are very different than the cases I've worked on. And so having that network of people to reach out to ask questions and to reciprocate and to be there as a helpful ear for people when they're in trouble, it's always beneficial. And that's, I think, how you build that trust and respect in our small community of EDiscovery experts.
Man. Well, so you just jumped the shark, because usually we wait till the end of the show to talk about something industry specific and providing, something to, promote, or something to constructively criticize, or something, whatever, but, some piece of advice. But, that networking piece, it's so true. And you said it really well in that, your knowledge would be limited only to the cases that you've worked on, right? And you learn so much through doing, but also through talking to others who have done it, because there's a lot more nuance than what you'll see in a textbook, right? But then what you'll get by studying for a certification, as good as those are, as important as those are, they're inherently limiting, or limited, I suppose I should say. So I want to walk back all the way to the beginning of where we started, which was being a medical first responder. So you said that you'd wanted to be a cop. Are there police officers in your family, or was it, the Dexter, the shows like this that drew you in, so I guess, first of all, why did you want to be a police officer? And at what age did you know that that's what you wanted to do? And was being a medical first responder kind of a first step towards that, or was that a complete aside?
Yeah, so I started off when I was in high school. I joined the Army Cadets. I thought it was just a cool organization to be a part of. I was very geeky, built computers, and read Star Trek books and watched Star Trek and Star Wars and everything. And so that, to me, joining the Army Cadets was a great opportunity to meet different people and to get out of the house. And so I joined the Army Cadets, and a lot of the individuals who were the leadership there were either police officers or were full-time Army individuals who said that there is such a huge network of police officers who were also in the military and are police officers. So that kind of drove me towards the police officer field. Police officers also need to have the ability to give medical attention as well. And same with the military as well. We are trained on combat first aid, what to do when there's different wounds and stuff. So it's kind of like the overlappingness of people who are in the Army, people who are police officers, people who are medical first responders in St. John ambulances. There was a huge, I think it's 90% of the people in St. John ambulance were also in the military. And then probably about 30% of them were police officers. So they all overlapped in that big Venn diagram. But yeah, that's how I got into that whole aspect. Yeah.
So do you have, obviously I would imagine that job was probably really emotionally draining and really emotionally rewarding. And there was this big roller coaster of things that you faced, right? Depending upon what kind of call you were responding to. Does anything particularly funny, whether it's gallows humor, right? You find sometimes humor in the darkest situations, right, is what kind of keeps humanity going. Was there anything particularly unexpected or funny that stands out to you about that time? Because I think a lot of people think of it as oh, that'd be all scary or all sad or all terrible, but it's an important part of society. We need people to do it. What are the good memories that maybe one or two that stick out to you from your time as a first responder?
I think Yeah, like you said, there are good times and there are stressful times as well. I remember that for the most part, people did not treat you well. People weren't really respectful, right? They saw it as like, this is your job, like this is what my tax dollars pay for, even though we were volunteers, we were getting paid. They're still they weren't appreciative of people coming and helping them out.
These are the people like you're responding to a call to help these people, and they're the ones. Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I would not have expected. I would expect that with police officers, because unfortunately there are some bad apples out there that put a bad reputation on a lot of brave men and women who truly are protecting and serving. Right. But I didn't know that unfortunate reputation extended to first responders as well. That's really surprising to me.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, police officers, that is one of the reasons I decided to switch away from law enforcement, was learning how like widely disrespected they were, and how a lot of the times they're just dealing with people who have mental illnesses, and they're always viewed as a bad person. I mean, I saw a comedian the other day, and he said, like, no one's ever happy to see a police siren or police lights in their back rearview mirror. Like, no one ever wants to see a police officer, right? Unless they're in trouble, and then chances are they don't come in enough time, and then they're upset anyway, right? So it's a very disrespected field, although I really highly respect the people, the police officers, and the people that I've worked alongside are top-notch people, and it's a very valuable part of society. But yeah.
My grandfather was a police officer for over 20 years here in Indianapolis, and in fact, the office that I'm sitting in right now recording this is across the street from the city county building where he worked for 25 years. So it's just kind of this neat thing. And I was pulled over as a high school kid, and I was complaining about the cops. And my papa is such a sweet, gentle, just really lovely human being. And it was one of the only times in my life I've seen him mad, right? Because I mean, he's had a gun pointed in his face on Christmas Eve. And so here I am, this 16-year-old punk, just complaining about this cop who pulled me over because I'm driving too fast. And, he gave me this lecture about, like, you have no idea what these people face. They have no idea who's in this car. They're nervous. They just want to, do their job and get home to their families. And I mean, he gave a really beautifully impassioned, he wasn't a jerk about it, but he was like, I knew that was 17 or 18 years ago. I sure as heck have never uttered a word other than anything respectful since then about the men and women, who protect our cities and towns. So yeah, that's wild. So when you moved to the UK, I mean, the fact that you did that largely on a whim, right? Within a month, you apply and you're gone. Are you the kind of guy who, like, you feed on that's adrenaline and you're all about it? It's a big life adventure. Or was this like, oh my gosh, I hope I'm making the right choice, and it's 2 years of I can't wait to get home? I mean, what was that process like, of the split second of deciding to go? And then how did you acclimate when you were there?
Well, when I first went to go off to law school, unfortunately, my grandmother passed away like 2 days before I was supposed to go to law school. So it was just like, coupled with going to a brand new country where I didn't know anybody at all. And I think the other question you asked earlier that I didn't answer was, what did my parents do? My father was, in a mechanic shop. My mother owned a florist shop. And so nothing to do with law, nothing to do with the UK whatsoever. I didn't know anyone that was going to law school out there. It was just like, on a whim. I just thought it was one of those things where, like, I'd been to school in Ontario, and I just had enough of it. There wasn't really much there. And I thought, I need to explore, and like, this is the best opportunity for me to go to Europe, and explore Europe while I'm over there. But yeah, when I got there, it was just completely different world. Couldn't get over some of the things there. Like they had 2 taps on the sinks. No screens on the windows. Like, it was just
those are pretty minor things. It sounds like you acclimated pretty well.
Yeah. English food is all fried, and English breakfast is obviously delicious. So it's and pubs with full of beer is a great opportunity. But yeah, I acclimated quite well. But I think after the first month or so, one of my colleagues who lived a couple of cities over in Toronto here, I met him, and we were both sitting there in a pub, and it was like 12 degrees Celsius, which is like really cold outside. It's always dark and dreary there. And we're sitting there going, man, I heard a bunch of our colleagues went to school in Australia, and it's like 25 degrees Celsius. Like they're surfing on their lunch breaks and everything. So we both looked into transferring, and the school's like, no, we're not going to give you your money back if you transfer. And so we're like, all right, well, we're already like a month or two in, like, let's just push forward. And so every day we'd sit and have a drink, and we would look at the weather in Australia and go, wow, we could have been in Australia right now. Instead, we're here in like miserable fucking freezing our butts off. And but no, it was a great experience because I didn't have any distractions. Like the town that I went to law school in, the biggest thing they had there was a Subway, like Subway sandwiches. So there was nothing really to do except for learn the practice of law, which was that great opportunity. So I acclimated quite well. And then, like I said, when I came back, it was that challenge, the uphill challenge of just getting accredited in Canada, and then also finding the right spot to come and work for.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt. I mean, it's always easy in life to look back and connect the dots, right? But you never know what the next step is. I mean, rarely, some people are savants or lucky or both, but heck, I had no idea what EDiscovery was 2.5 years ago, and now I'm building, a company in it. And so, you never know, but you've certainly landed at a good spot. I mean, FTI, they've had a good name for a long time to begin with. And I knew their name from other industries I've worked in. But certainly their EDiscovery practice has really done an impressive job of some lateral recruiting lately. And to say nothing of some of the, the content they put out and the things that they've developed are very impressive. So big kudos to you for finding a home there. And hey, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we did this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
All right, cheers.